this week it was announced that Ash Ketchum will be leaving the Pokemon TV show alongside Pikachu.
Yes, I am Ash.
Ash Ketchum is a boy from Pallet Town.
And now that I'm 10, I can finally get my Pokémon license.
10-year-olds can get a beginner Pokemon from Professor Oak, the town's Pokemon expert.
I will journey to gain the wisdom of Pokemon training. And I hereby declare to the Pokemon of the world, I will be a Pokemon master.
Wow, even just hearing that voice acting there, I feel super nostalgic. Because I guess, and if you haven't ever seen the Pokemon TV show, I mean, I assume none of us watch it anymore. I haven't watched that show since I was a kid. I mean, I've caught episodes on TV like every once in a while that I'll just watch. But Ash Ketchum is sort of, I feel like, such an iconic character, not only in anime and like Japanese exports to the West, but also just in millennial and 90s culture in general. I think as a character, he's just such a iconic anime dude who just represented every kind of kid from the 90s. And, you know, the clip I just played you there was from the first ever episode of Pokemon, the anime, Pokemon I Choose You. Would have aired maybe in the late 90s. And I guess as a kid at that time, it was the right time for a lot of kids. Like, we were 4 or 5 years old and this Pokemon thing started and it became a worldwide phenomenon. You know, it was a video game, then they turned it into an anime to help sell the games, then they turned it into trading cards and other, you know, spin-off games and movies and everything you could possibly get. The most profitable franchise in the world, for good reason. And I think the weirdest part for me, there's a lot of aspects to this. Sentimental, commercial, you know, social. It's very interesting to me. Because for me, Ash Ketchum is... like, it's been 22 years, I think, that this character has been on our screen. And there's this long-running kind of joke or meme that Ash Ketchum is the boy that never grew up. You know, he's been 10 years old for 25 years on TV, and it just, like, it doesn't even really make sense in the logic of the show because other characters kind of grow up and age up a little bit, but he's always 10 years old. All of his other friends go off and get jobs and do actual stuff, but Ash Ketchum is always 10 years old. He's got his Pikachu. He goes to whenever a new game comes out in Pokemon, he goes to that game's like region and goes and catches all the new Pokemon. Starts from scratch. But, you know, the other thing is his Pikachu is extremely strong, and, you know, Pokemon grow levels in the Pokemon games, and Ash's Pikachu has done so many battles, he must be level 100, but then at the start of a new season, Ash will go to the new region, battle like a caterpillar Pokemon, and it'll beat his Pikachu somehow, even though his Pikachu is level 100. I'm really shocked by this decision. So they've announced that the next season of the anime, Ash will be retired, finally, and so will Pikachu. Ash and his Pikachu will be retired. And this really shocks me because I just think those characters are so iconic. So from a business and marketing standpoint, I find it such an interesting and risky choice because you don't know that these new characters they're bringing in are going to resonate with kids as much as Ash Ketchum did. That being said, they probably will. Any character will because it's more about the Pokemon. But I guess as an icon of that franchise and of anime in the West in general, it just does feel like a really big decision. But not just Ash Ketchum, because I think Ash is a very iconic character. Again, very representative of that millennial 90s boy. And to be fair, the new characters, there's 2 new main characters they're going to bring in. And one is a boy, one is a girl, right? I guess trying to, again, when Pokemon first came out, I think gaming and all of these things were very much about boys, right? Even to the point that, like, the Game Boy was literally called a Game Boy. That's all part of... those are all marketing decisions. Like, they weren't targeting girls. But now I think in 2022, 25 years later, it's a very different landscape for these things. So it's like, yeah, we need a guy and a girl. We need two main characters, and, you know, we need to try and represent as many people as possible, which I think is a good thing. The main thing that shocks me so much about this is the fact that they will retire Pikachu as well. Because as much as Ash Ketchum is the face of all the children in the world that love Pokemon, Pikachu almost undoubtedly would have to be one of the most iconic fictional characters of all time. Like, I really do believe that in 2022, more children would be able to recognize and name Pikachu than something like Mickey Mouse, which I guess maybe to you doesn't seem necessarily, depends on when you're born. Maybe that seems like a no-brainer. I guess when I was born, Mickey Mouse was a very prominent character. So was like Bugs Bunny, even though they were still very relevant. Now, not so much. But I genuinely think that Pikachu is just one of the most profoundly successful character designs in history. You know, it has everything going for it. It's cute. It can be angry. It can be edgy. It has thunder cheeks. Like, it uses electricity to attack. It can fight, but it's also adorable and cute. You know, really, really gets every market in. Boys love him because he's aggressive and fights. Girls would love him, you know, I'm generalizing, by the way, but girls love him because he's cute, adorable, has a cute voice. And to me, Pikachu is a goldmine. And he springs up like, you know, he is the mascot of the franchise. He really is the mascot of definitely the anime. Also, a lot of the games, you know, highlight Pikachu a lot. And, you know, if there's ever like a Pokemon crossover thing, it's always Pikachu. You know, Pikachu is the Pokemon rep in Super Smash Bros., the original Pokemon rep. He pops up in all kinds of different things, right? And don't even get me started on Pikachu plush dolls, merchandise, like all of this stuff that features Pikachu. So to me, it is super, super interesting that they will retire that character from the show and no longer have Pikachu as the mascot of the show. Because I don't think there are many other Pokemon that could really fill that void. I remember in the first season of the show, I mean, obviously you have like your starter Pokemon that were big, like Bulbasaur, Squirtle, Charmander, in the when I used to watch the TV show years and years ago. And then they also had Jigglypuff. But I just thought Pikachu was such an iconic design. So very interested. I really do think it will still have some kind of presence in that show. And they're actually doing like a farewell season for Ash. They're doing like a mini series where they farewell Ash and he reunites with all these old Pokemon. And like, I even saw like one of the most iconic, for all 90s kids, back me up here, one of the most iconic episodes of the original show was when Ash says goodbye to his Butterfree, who falls in love with another Butterfree, and he cries and they fly off. So sad. Breaks my heart every single time, right? And in this little trailer for the miniseries, they show him reuniting with his Butterfree. And for us, it's 20 years later. But you've got to imagine for him, it must be less than a year later, because like canonically, because he's still 10 years old. That's where it stops making any sense. But I'm going to watch it for sure. Like, I just think it'll be such a interesting way to see how they send off this character. And I do really believe that he will pop up. I think maybe a lot of people are saying that he might be the father of one of the new characters. So he might finally grow up and be in the show. Otherwise, a lot of people just think he'll be a recurring character in the new show, but not the main character. But I don't think they're done with this character for good. He'll always be part of that world. He'll pop up he'll definitely pop up on screen again. And I'd love to think in 20 years' time we get some kind of Luke Skywalker-esque return of Ash Ketchum in the show as well. The same way, you know, Luke Skywalker pops up at the end of Mandalorian. Something like that would be really awesome. But yeah, I think it makes me feel weird in a lot of reasons because, you know, nostalgia aside, well, not nostalgia aside, but just generally speaking with this character, like, I just turned 28. Like, I'm really pushing being young. Like, I'm going to be 30 in a couple of years. You know, I'm getting closer to 29 now. It's been like 2 weeks since my 28th birthday. And, you know, coming to the end of the year and, you know, lots of life changes for me this year as well. I think just seeing this news kind of made me be like, yeah, like, I'm growing up and, like, the world is moving on from the stuff that I was into. And I guess I never really thought, I guess in my mind, even though I don't watch this show and I haven't, there was something comforting about knowing that sometimes I would turn the TV on and they would be playing some episode of Pokemon on, and I'd just see it and be like, cool, I'll sit down and watch this, you know, just for some nostalgia, and that Ash Ketchum would be there. Because every kid wanted to be Ash Ketchum. He was awesome. And yeah, it's just sad. The other thing for me, I think that like the thing I never expected would happen, but will eventually happen inevitably, is like The Simpsons being cancelled. One day they will probably stop making episodes of The Simpsons, and it'll probably be soon if it's happening. And yeah, I think that's something inevitable, but it will still be sad to me when it happens, even though I don't really watch the show. Even though I don't I don't engage with I still engage with The Simpsons, but I don't watch the show too much. It's just comforting for me to know that they still make the show and that it still happens. So I think, yeah, it was weird news for, I think, a lot of millennials who read it were like, oh, that's weird. Like, that's weird. It really is ushering out our childhood a little bit. And I really felt that. So I'm really fascinated to see what comes next. I am genuinely excited for this little farewell miniseries. I'll definitely watch it. I might even talk about it on YouTube or on this pod or something like that. But I would love to know your thoughts as well. Like, because the other thing is, because the show and the games would kind of reset every 2 or 3 years when they put out new games, then the new season of the show starts and it kind of resets. I think every kid kind of got a fresh start with Ash. I just happened to be a kid when the show started. And I'll tell you, like, we loved that show. Me and my brother used to watch Pokemon religiously. It was a really fun show. It was really exciting as a kid. You know, you got to see all these Pokemon and you just, I don't know, you wanted to find out what happened next, all the battles he was doing, all the Pokemon he caught. You were interested in that. It hooked you in. And I think every kid kind of had that with their own generation of Pokemon that they were in. So, yeah, saying goodbye to Ash Ketchum. Big deal. Made me really reflect on my age and that, yeah, my childhood is really a very long time in the past, which is sad, and enjoy it while you can. But I did want to inject some comedy into this because obviously the main sort of meme around Pokemon is, well, there's a few things. One, the original slogan of Pokemon is "Gotta catch 'em all." And many of you will likely, even if you haven't engaged with the show, I'm sure many of you will be familiar with the original Pokemon anime theme song. You know, I want to be the very best, like no one ever was. Pokemon, gotta catch 'em all, right? And, you know, that song in itself has become quite a meme in popular culture these days. But Pokemon, the original thing was gotta catch 'em all. And one thing that I find really funny about that is that once they got to the third generation of Pokemon, so there might have been about 400 Pokemon at this point. When they got to that point, this is a true story, they actually dropped the "Gotta Catch 'em all" tagline of the show because they realized that it would just become impossible and unreasonable for anyone to catch them all, especially Ash Ketchum in the show. So they actually dropped the "Gotta Catch 'em all" tagline because they knew if they were just going to keep going at this trajectory, which they did, there's now over 1,000 Pokemon. They knew if they kept going, it would just be impossible for Ash to catch them all in the show. So they just dropped it. And it just I don't think the "gotta catch 'em all" phrase is still the tagline. I don't think they use it anywhere in marketing. It's just become such an iconic line. I think maybe when Pokemon Go came out, because so much of that game was about just catching all the Pokemon, maybe they brought it back for that, and because that was such a nostalgic game. But yeah, they had to get rid of it. But I thought it was really funny because, imagine Ash Ketchum starts out, there's only 151 Pokemon. And then he's catching a few, he's getting a good collection going. And then next up, now there's 251. And then, a few years later, now there's 400. And a few years later, now there's 600. Now there's 800. Now there's 1,000. Kid can't possibly catch a break. There's no way he can catch them all. He'll never get there, even though it's his mission. And so now that they're retiring Ash, I think Ash has actually put out a statement through song about his experience trying to catch them all.
I wanted to be the very best, like no one ever was. To catch them was my real test, but now I'll have to pause. Because I travelled across the lands, searching far and wide. But when I learned there's over 1,000 of them, I just broke down and cried. Pokemon, I couldn't catch them all. My friends all abandoned me. Pokemon, oh, I have no friends. I've been 10 for 20 years. Pokemon, oh, this can't be true. I should be like 32. I can't do this anymore. Time to grow up. I couldn't catch 'em all. I couldn't catch 'em all.
Poor Ash Ketchum. R.I.P. Ash Ketchum. Well, he's not dead. But thank you for some very nostalgic memories of my childhood. That's a very great character. A very great boy / man.